Look, we all know how it goes in this city. When the calendar flips to February and the dust starts to settle on the NFL season, the conversation around the NovaCare complex doesn't just simmer, it boils. And right now, here at Eagles Fans News, the heat is cranked all the way up. From my perspective, the 2026 offseason isn't just another cycle of roster shuffling, it's a turning point. We're coming off a 2025 campaign that, let's be honest, left a lot of us scratching our heads. Jalen Hurts took some steps back in the run game. The offense felt stagnant at times, and we watched a coaching staff shakeup that landed us a brand new offensive coordinator in Sean Mannion. But here's what Eagles fans need to understand. Howie Roseman isn't sitting on his hands. He never does. And the latest buzz coming out of the national media, specifically from Greg Allman over at Fox Sports, has a name attached to it that should make every one of you sit up and take notice. We're talking about Romeo Doubs. Now, before you dismiss this as just another free agency rumor, I want you to really think about the fit. In my view, this changes everything for the dynamic of this offense. We've spent years trying to find that legitimate, consistent third option behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. We've tried the Jahan Dotsons of the world. We've looked at the Quez Watkins types. And while they had their moments, we haven't had that reliable every-down guy who can punish a defense for doubling A.J. or shading help to a Devontae. Romeo Doubs is that guy. As someone who lives and breathes Eagles football, I've watched this team evolve since the Super Bowl LII run. I remember when we had a hierarchy that just worked, guys who knew their roles and executed them with blue-collar precision. Doubs brings that Green Bay pedigree. Over the last 4 seasons with the Packers, he's been the model of consistency. We're looking at a guy who's averaged 50 catches, 600 yards, and 5 touchdowns a year. In 2025 alone, he hauled in 55 balls for over 700 yards and 6 scores. But it's not just the stats, it's the context. Think about who we just hired to run this offense, Sean Mannion. Mannion spent the last 2 years in Green Bay as the quarterback's coach. He didn't just watch Doubs from the sidelines, he was in the room. He helped build the game plans that saw Doubs become Jordan Love's security blanket. When you're a young offensive coordinator coming into a pressure cooker like Philadelphia, you want guys who know your language. You want players who can walk into the huddle and help the rest of the guys translate the scheme on the fly. If we bring Doubs in, and the word is he's looking at a deal in that $12 to $15 million range, he doesn't just provide depth, he provides a safety net for Jalen Hurts. Let's talk about Jalen for a second. In 2025, his rushing numbers dipped, just 421 yards on the ground. The tush push is still a weapon, but the explosive breakaway runs weren't there like they used to be. The league is adjusting. If Jalen is going to transition into that next phase of his career, the refined passer phase we keep hearing about, he needs options. He needs a guy like Doubs who can win those contested catches on 3rd and 6 when A.J. is being mugged at the line and shading help toward Devontae. In my view, adding a weapon like this is how you protect your franchise quarterback. You don't just protect him with the offensive line, though God knows we're going to miss the leadership of legends like Jason Kelce and eventually Lane Johnson. You protect him by giving him answers to the test. Imagine it, Lincoln Fantasy Field, a cold December afternoon against the Cowboys. They're playing bracket coverage on A.J. Brown. They've got a safety over the top of Devontae. In years past, that's where the drive might stall. But with Doubs and that 11 personnel look, Jalen has a 6'2" target who can climb the ladder and make a play. What Eagles fans need to understand is that Howie is playing a long game here. We've got core guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith on the defensive side who are coming into their own. We've got the youth in the secondary with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. But the offense needs that reboot that the front office has been talking about. There's reason to believe that the Shanahan-McVay style of offense Mannion wants to run is going to rely heavily on those 3 receiver sets. And with Jahan Dotson likely heading out to find a bigger role elsewhere, there's a gaping hole in this depth chart. Now, some of you might say $15 million for a WR3. That's a lot of cap space. But let's look at the landscape. The salary cap is projected to jump by over $20 million this year. We have the breathing room. And when you look at the NFC contenders, the Niners, the Lions, and the Packers, they aren't just deep, they're versatile. We can't afford to be one-dimensional anymore. I've seen the greats in this city. I've seen the intensity of Brian Dawkins and the grit of Chuck Bednarik. That blue-collar mentality is built on never being satisfied. Bringing in a guy like Romeo Doubs, a fourth-round pick who worked his way into being a primary target in Green Bay, fits the Philly DNA perfectly. He's not a diva, he's a worker. If this trend of hiring former Packers staff continues, and if Howie decides to pull the trigger on a veteran like Dobbs, it signals one thing. The Eagles aren't just trying to compete in 2026, they're trying to dominate. The pressure on Sean Mannion is immense. He's a 33-year-old first-time play caller entering the toughest market in sports. He needs a win early. Signing a player he's personally coached, a player who understands the nuances of the modern offense the Eagles have been craving, is a massive head start. As we look toward the draft in April and the start of free agency in March, keep your eyes on the Packers to Philly pipeline. It's more than just a coincidence, it's a strategy. In my view, Romeo Doubs and Midnight Green makes too much sense to ignore. It's the kind of move that doesn't just boost Jalen Hurts' stock, it solidifies the Eagles as the powerhouse of the NFC East for years to come. We'll be watching the wires closely. You know Howie always has an ace up his sleeve, and this might just be the one that gets us back to the promised land. Stay tuned to Eagles Fans News. We're going to keep it real, keep it honest, and keep it Philly. Fly, Eagles, fly.